So at the time, I thought we need to do something with the technologies that do work to accelerate or to buy us some time. And putting solar on schools was a pretty sort of obvious place to do it. Schools consume electricity mainly during the day. They're very stable counterparties. Schools rarely close, unlike most businesses that last 25 years are rare. Most schools will be around for 25 years or more. And so that was one reason. But the really interesting reason about the why I find schools so exciting and what's so special about schools is the opportunity to empower young people. Young people are pretty scared about the future. They hear about climate change, they can start to see it around them, but they're powerless or feel powerless to do very much about it. When we go into schools and we talk to students and we explain about energy, the question we're often asked is, but what can I do? I'm just a 12-year-old. What difference can I make to the world? And we go, actually, you can make a huge difference. Did you get what you wanted for Christmas? And they go, yes. What's that got to do with anything? So, well, your parents care very deeply about your happiness. They want you to be happy. They want you to have a good future. So you need to learn what it is that they need to do differently to ensure that you do have a good future. So we then talk to them about and explain to them what energy is. And Danielle will tell you a little bit more about what we do in the schools. And we explain to them that if they understand the problems and the challenges and the solutions, they can then educate their parents and their community about doing that. And then they go, but I'm just one kid. And they go, yeah, but there are 2 billion young people in the world out of the total of 8. So that means you each have to only persuade 3 adults, 2 parents and a grandparent. Could you do that? And they go, yes. And so that's the incredible power. If we can then educate children to do and understand the challenges we face, we can accelerate the pace to net zero.
But the educational workshops are the absolute amazing thing about Solar for Schools, because they really bring high levels of engagement. And Danielle, in particular, she's in the schools and she can share with us, some of her experiences. And what's really lovely about Solar for Schools is we work with other grant providers who are particularly keen to work in areas of deprivation across the country. And that ensures equal opportunities for all students, because our educational system is quite divided if we look across the country. And we can see, as a company going into schools in the south and north, in rural areas and also in inner cities, that there is a disparity between a child's experiences from coming out of a rural school, perhaps, to a child coming out of an inner city school. But Solar for Schools delivers workshops to all the schools at the same standard. And we're able to raise that knowledge and understanding that Robert was talking about for every child that we meet. So every child that Solar for Schools meets will have an equal opportunity to gain knowledge and understanding about how to live more sustainably. And that will absolutely transform them as they move forward to become responsible citizens in their own right.
So they have a real understanding by the time we've left the school of how much energy the average household uses, for example, how much that costs, what a kilowatt hour is, and then how much capacity is on their rooftop for generating electricity. And it's really exciting for the students. I always leave them with the idea that they've got a power station on their rooftop, and that's really empowering. I try to drum up a sense of pride in that, because it is an incredibly powerful tool that they have there. And as Robert said, they often do go back to their parents and talk to them about this excitedly, and of course it isn't possible for parents. Most parents in this country cannot afford solar panels, but we're inspiring them with the idea of energy efficiency. So something else we cover is by showing students the live school data that they have access to, and talking them through that and showing them that they can suddenly see how much electricity their school uses in comparison to how much solar is generated by their system, the children are blown away by it. And the sense that I got there was across the board, across every student, was this sense of civic action, that they were actually taking some action. They'd even come up with the idea of having power down days. So after the solar was installed, they thought, right, we need to continue to reduce our energy uses. How can we do that? And they were so thrilled to tell me in their assembly about this power down day. So that one day of the school year, they completely turn off all their electricity and cope without it. And I just think that's amazing. And they've come up with that as a result of doing this project.
Ultimately, the money to repay the bonds and pay the interest is coming from the sale of electricity from those solar panels. Most of that electricity is sold back to the school, but of course the school is closed on weekends and summer, so some of it invariably spills back into the grid. And we have a model that predicts how much of a certain system size in a certain location based on how much that school consumes generally will be used by the school versus how much is spilt back. And knowing that, we can then calculate what the school would have to pay for every unit it buys from us, so that the sum of the units sold to the school plus the sum of the units sold to the grid at a relatively low price, we assume 3.5p for what we sell back to the grid, is enough to repay the investors over a 23-year period of time, to repay that loan over a 23-year period of time, and the interest over that time, and any maintenance costs and management costs around it. And those management costs are the bits that we then use to then fund the education piece. So that's the key mechanics of it. The key variability of it are, how much electricity will those solar panels generate in the first place? And that's actually pretty easy to work out. There are databases that tell you how much electricity you'll generate from a solar panel in a particular direction or orientation anywhere in the country. We take that data, we adjust it downwards a bit to be conservative. So that's the first bit. How much the school will consume of that, that's the second piece. And then what's the cost of installing it? So those are the three factors. And we've now done nearly 200 projects. So we've got a pretty good experience as to know what that costs. And that's all in a financial model that's actually visible indirectly on our websites. There are two ways of doing it. One, we could offer a debenture that gradually repays every bondholder over a 23-year period. The challenge with that is that you're repaying lots and lots of people a little bit of money every year for a very long period of time, which is not very attractive to most investors. So that's why we said, well, what we'll do is we'll hold your money for 5 years and then repay it completely. How do we actually do that? We do that by raising bonds again. So the underlying mortgages, if you think of the mortgage as the sort of repayment of the system, is gradually shrinking over 23 years. After a 5-year period, we've effectively repaid part of it. Typically, we reinvest in other projects, but effectively that's equivalent of repaying it and raising more money. And then the rest, we refinance. So we're about to repay about £1 million worth of bonds due this October. And so we've just notified them all that they're due for repayment and given them the option to reinvest automatically at 5.5. About half we think will want to reinvest and half will then be repaid. And that will then be raised from new bondholders. Leaving our money in the bank, yes, it's guaranteed. But if the climate around us collapses, that's not going to help us either. So it's kind of a balance. And what I'd like to think is we've made it as safe as possible to do something positive for the environment. Yes, or you can just keep it 100% safe in your bank and hope that the environment looks after itself. And that's a decision you each have to make.
Me, I would just say that the community is made up of the schools and the students, but it's equally made up of the bondholders. And for us, it's really important to us that we have the crowdfunding for the community, and it's lovely that we have really amazing bondholders, and the comments that we get from our bondholders really support us through the work that we do. So thank you to all those who do invest.